Hello, what's up guys? I'm Kyle from KGR, and the Nintendo Switch 2 comes out on June 5th, and this is probably the most controversial system to come out since the Xbox One's reveal. Nintendo themselves hosted a Nintendo Direct dedicated for the Switch 2, and for the most part did a really good job building up that hype train. The only real complaints is that we had to do paid upgrades for games, which I'm not a fan of, but also we have a paid tech demo, which is stupid, but I'm curious, so I'm probably gonna buy it myself anyway. But for the most part, it got a lot of us excited. In fact, I was even saying during the Nintendo Direct that this is the perfect Nintendo Switch successor. This is the Switch perfected. But then that hype train came to a screeching halt as soon as all the other information came out. First up, let's talk about the pricing for the system itself, being at $450 for the main unit and then $500 for the Mario Kart bundle. As high as that price is, it is close to what I expected. Personally, I was a little bit more optimistic, being at like $400 for the base unit and maybe $450 for the Mario Kart bundle, trying to be close to that consumer-friendly price. However, an extra $50, it is what it is.
But the Nintendo Switch 2 isn't as powerful as a PS5 or an Xbox Series X.
And although that is true, the console wars are not what they used to be. Xbox is trying to sell you their software as well as Game Pass. That's it. The PlayStation is trying to sell you their hardware as well as their exclusives. But the first Nintendo Switch already outpaced the PS4 and the Xbox One anyway, so they're not really much in competition to each other much anymore. But the Nintendo Switch 2 does actually have competition, and it's not the PlayStation or the Xbox. For the first time since the GameCube, the Switch 2 actually has competition, and that's going to mostly be the Steam Deck, the ROG Ally, or any other dedicated PC handheld. What made the Switch 1 so special was not only the fact that you could take your Nintendo system on the go and just back onto a dock conveniently, but it is the fact that we're having console experiences, console games on the go. There is no longer a dedicated version of the game meant for Game Boy or DS or 3DS. This is mostly the same game that you played on PS4, but now on your Nintendo Switch. And for a while, that was great. That was special. But now we have much more powerful hardware that plays not only these games better, but has a bigger library because of distribution services like Steam or GOG if you're doing the ROG Ally or any other Windows-based system. You already have a huge library you already built up for years, but now you can just play them on a much more powerful handheld. And over the years, I have met developers. And there was one I met in particular that managed to get their hands on the Switch 2 far before that this thing was revealed. And they're claiming that this thing is more powerful than a Steam Deck. Now, this is the only opinion that I heard, so I'm not sure how entirely true that is, but the fact that it is as competent as that, if not better, is already a fantastic sign. So $450 for a new system, I think that's fine. However, $80 for a new Mario Kart? That's where things are kind of sketchy. The biggest problem with this is that this is going to be opening up floodgates for other publishers to make their games $80. So most likely your now new annual Call of Madden 2K game is going to be $80 and then maybe $110 or $120 for your digital upgrade. I don't know what those upgraded prices are because I don't buy them annually. I don't buy them at all, to be completely honest. But the biggest concern I have about all of that is the casual market. I think this is going to be very hard to convince your parents, grandparents, or aunts and uncles, or any other related adult that has money to be able to buy this either for you or for themselves to make this an approachable system to buy. Sure, the PS5 is a very successful system at $500, so yeah, sure, that's fine. And I don't think it's the price of the hardware that completely stops people. It's the fact that Mario Kart is $80. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which is a repackaged game from 2014 for the Nintendo Switch, ever since it launched, it was always in the top 10 selling games of the week for 99% of its runtime. There was only maybe once or twice where it was not in the top 10 anymore, but then it just came back. This game occasionally goes on sale and is sometimes bundled with Nintendo Switch systems during the holidays, but the fact that it can maintain that top 10 year-round, that game is making money hand over fist. In fact, it made so much money they decided, you know what, let's just add on to the game. and they still made a profit on top of that. Now, I'm not a developer. I don't have deep conversations with the devs I have met about how pricing goes. They're devs, not publishers, number one. Number two, again, I'm not a professional at this. Like, this is just me speculating and just assuming. But having Mario Kart launch at $80 has me more convinced about the rumor that GTA 6 is going to be a $100 game for a base game. So anybody who is complaining about the Switch 2 being expensive and Mario Kart being too expensive, if your annual Call of Madden 2K games is $80, are you still going to buy that? If GTA 6 is going to be $100, are you still going to buy that? Because that's projected to be the biggest video game launch ever. So personally, I'm just convinced that people are shocked by it and very upset. The fact that gaming outlets like IGN are making articles of the chat in Nintendo live streams like the Treehouse, that's a problem. But just like your annual Call of Madden 2K and GTA, Mario Kart is such a powerful brand, it probably will sell well anyway. And I'm pretty confident a fair majority of those sales are going to be strictly from the Mario Kart bundles for the Switch 2, not by just net units of having them physically. And also from what I've read and seen, in other regions that physical games are going to be $10 more. Why? From what it sounds like, it's not hitting America. I think that's just a lot of confusion, because if you look at pre-order like listings from like GameStop or Best Buy, they still have these games marked at $80. But seeing all the price gouging that we're seeing here has me kind of convinced of the rumor that we are heading toward another video game crash. But also the complaint that Nintendo is being upfront about how some cartridges are just gonna be access to the game that you still gotta download anyway. I find that people being upset about that is hilarious, because if you've bought Call of Duty in the past couple of years, or if you bought any of the Microsoft Studio games for your Xbox Series S physically, they're all doing the exact same thing. There are literally megabytes of data on a Call of Duty disc, and you download the rest of it. Nintendo is just the first one to be completely honest about it. So again, if you're upset about that, don't buy Call of Duty. However, the last thing I want to talk about are people saying if you're buying the system as well as these games, you are supporting these practices, which on paper is true. However, I'm going to tell you a story. When I bought my 3DS, I bought mine at Toys R Us when the thing was still $250. Not only is Toys R Us not a thing anymore, but the 3DS dropped to $170 because it wasn't selling well. I also bought a Wii U at launch, and look how well the Wii U went. Just because a Nintendo enthusiast like myself is buying these systems, that doesn't mean the system itself is going to be successful. Or if you want to call me a Nintendo fanboy, that works too, but I have other systems outside of Nintendo, but that's okay. If you don't like the price of the system itself, don't buy a PS5 brand new. If you don't like the price of the games, like I said earlier, don't buy your Call of Madden 2Ks or GTA 6 if they go up to $80 to $100. And Nintendo fans buying this system on day one isn't completely supporting these practices. But anybody who is voting with their wallets, I commend you for that. I'm proud of you for that, actually. However, this thing is expected to sell out, so I don't know where this is going to go. But I can't help to be concerned about the Switch 2, or even the gaming industry as a whole. But also, it's been revealed that the Switch 2 is essentially just emulating the Switch 1 games. That's odd. But I think they're just doing the same thing that the 3DS did with DS games and all that jazz, because you could tell that the games didn't look the same on the 3DS. But hey, I'm just a fat, bearded, bald guy with a camera and an opinion. So let me know in the comments, how do you feel about the Switch 2? Because this is a very concerning launch, and I'm nervous of this thing not doing all that well. Nintendo said how they were trying to avoid what they did with the Wii U, and the Wii U wasn't successful because nobody really knew what it was. Which, I guess they're right. Everybody knows what the Switch 2 is. Not in the best light, but it got plenty of press about it for sure. But I'm sure a fair amount of us are concerned that this thing may end up being a failure like the Wii U. Which will be a shame because now it's getting the most third-party support that Nintendo's ever had. We are getting Call of Duty. We are getting Madden and WWE on it. Like, we are getting your annual Call of Madden 2Ks on this. Like, this is gonna be an incredible system for Nintendo, so good job on them. However, the Switch itself is a little bit more expensive than we expected it to be, and the games are disgustingly expensive. However, one can hope that Nintendo will listen to the pushback and maybe rethink about their pricing for their games, but I don't think they're going to be doing that immediately. I think this is going to be something that might be happening later down the line, and by the time that happens, the damage might be done, because the Xbox One was doomed from the start because of how they were trying to handle used games, as well as being always connected online to play your games. Do you think that Nintendo shot themselves in the foot? Do you think they're leaving too much of a bad taste in people's mouths to have this Switch 2 be successful? Or are you still going to buy it on day one anyway? Or are you going to wait to see if the price drops down and buy it later? Let me know down below. And also, this is the first time I've done gaming news or a gaming opinion like this in a very, very long time. So if you want to see more videos like this, let me know, because it would be nice to do stuff outside of just figure unboxings and eBay videos, because this is something I used to do a long time ago and I kind of miss it. I just don't have the time anymore because I work full time. But thank you for watching. So if you're new and you like what you saw, you know what to do. In the description, there's going to be my link tree to all my other social media. And the Switch 2 is scary. But thank you for watching. I love you guys to death. And I'll see you on the next one. So peace, peace.